Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Stephen here with this week's 10-minute Torah, as we started calling it. So, this week's portion is Shoftim. It means judgments. But before we get into that, let me make a judgment of my own. And my judgment is that things are starting to take off in the synagogue. And thank you so much. This past weekend, Sherry Beaver, one of our most distinguished members, been around for a long time, does so much around the synagogue, hosted fundraisers, and she hosted a yard site for her sister and asked for people to come in and minion, and we did, and you did. You came in. I think we had like 13 people there for Saturday, which is astounding. I tell you, it was so wonderful that there's so much participation, that you folks are devoting yourself. You're seeing the value in coming to synagogue and studying Torah every week, and it's just a beautiful thing. And when you look at the synagogue, this is the beginning of our Renaissance. You just have to kind of. So, we also, please keep this date in mind. We're going to start talking about it now. We're about 5 weeks away. But on March 1st, we will be doing Shabbat Across America. This is a program that is sponsored by an organization, NJOP, National Jewish Outreach Program. And when we talk about outreach in Judaism, we're not an evangelical. We don't go out and tell people, oh, be this chosen person, be like us, the chosen people, have Hashem love you. We don't do that. Hashem loves all of us, all of you anyway. So there's really no point to that. But what they are doing is they want to get non-affiliated and let's just call them lightly affiliated Jews more involved. Lightly affiliated people don't go to a synagogue, they don't show up very much, they don't do things. They don't come to services, rather. They just maybe do the minimal, but we want to get you in. So what they do is they sponsor the Shabbat Across America. You will be coming to a Friday night Shabbat service on March 1st that everyone across, not just America, USA, but also Canada is doing. It's kind of like this one group, this big community, this Kalal Yisrael, Think of the Jews at Mount Sinai getting the Torah, and, of course, what we're doing is we're all coming together. We're going to do we're supposed to have a kosher meal, but to make it easy, we're going to do a potluck. So it's dairy only, and that way we don't have to worry about the milk and meat and meat being kosher, etc. So just make it a dairy dish. More information that comes with it. So let's talk about Shoftim judgments, or more to the point, ordinances. So in the last portion, we received the 10 Commandments, the big ones. Now we're starting to drill down into torts and civil law. So what is a tort? It's a contract. And as far as the contract goes in Judaism, your word is your bond. You do something, you make sure that everything is equitable. So where does it start? It starts with slaves. I'll come to that in a second, but I want to make this point. In last week's Torah portion, we had Jethro came, saw Moses and Moshe Rabbeinu adjudicating everybody's issues, and he said, this is ridiculous, you're going to be here forever, you're not going to be able to adjudicate, people are going to be waiting in line, why don't you just hire people, kind of delegate minimal, lower forms of judgments, of adjudication. And he did that. Then we got the 10 Commandments. So now we're starting to find out how to do this. Now we have more ordinances. Now we have civil law. Now we have different, as people are living together, in communities, we're bound to interact, sometimes not so positive. And, how do you deal with times when things just go wrong, okay? So it's interesting that we're teaching people how to adjudicate. Now, of course, this applies to judges. We've got the Sanhedrin, which is the largest elected Jewish equivalent of the Supreme Court, 71 elders, and we have lower courts, finally coming down to the 3-person Beit Din, pass of judgment. So this is kind of how we do this. And if you look in Judaism, if you look at these things, you will see that everything is designed to be fair and equitable. Make sure that everyone gets their due. So the first thing that we encounter is the idea of the slaves. Now, in Judaism, in Hebrew, there is no separate word for slave or servant. Aved. Avadim hayinu, slaves we were. Avod is a servant as well as a slave. So there are 2 situations where someone becomes a slave. Either they put themselves into slavery because things just haven't gone well and they're facing destitution and abject poverty, and they need something, so they sell themselves to a household so they can work off a debt, they can build themselves up. their possessions up. So, because when they leave the service, they get some gifts so they can start life anew. And of course, in the sabbatical year, the 7th year is when slaves go free, when you're released from your obligation, whether it's been 1 year or 6. That creates a few problems too. And interesting enough, we'll come to that later, because that situation, that case is discussed later in the Torah. But for right now, they're talking about a thief that breaks in to someone's house and steals something, or someone that steals an animal and needs to make restitution. They've been deemed by the court that they have to pay back a monetary value. And it's not just the monetary value, there's typically a penalty. Somebody walks off with your ox, then it's 5 oxen. Somebody walks off with a sheep, then it's 3 sheep. So crime really does not pay. It can get real expensive, when you're caught, especially when you're living in a tight community where everybody sees what's going on. So this is what happens when a person is indentured, let's say. The big concept that comes into play here is in Latin, it's called lex talionis, the law of the tally, measure for measure, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, life for life. And it was never in the Torah meant to be taken literally. If you cause somebody's eye to be poked out, the court's not going to go blind you. They're not going to mutilate you and pain you. Now, this is in contrast to the Code of Hammurabi, and we were talking about that last Saturday. There is, in fact, in the Sonsino edition of the Chumash, edited by Rabbi Dr. Joseph Hertz, who was the late great chief rabbi of the British Empire, and it's that blue book, the blue Chumash that we have that everybody I know, and myself included, received as a gift for their bar mitzvah. But he has essays in between the different books, and one of the essays discusses the difference between Torah and the Code of Hammurabi. Now, the big thing is that the big difference is that in the Torah, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, life for life, is, except in one situation, meant to be financial compensation. See, in Judaism, everything has to be fair. And in Judaism, as the ArtScroll, the Orthodox version of the Chumash makes a point, it's really kind of, there's no difference between religion and everyday life, at least for us in this. And I know that in this country we have separation of church and state because we don't want anybody being forced on to have a religion that they may not feel comfortable with. But in Judaism, all this comes from God. If it comes from God, then it's perfect. Then this is the way it is. It's like gravity. You pick up an object, you drop it, and it falls to the ground. That's gravity. That's the law of nature. Well, God's laws, these laws, these mishpatim, are laws of Hashem as well, the same as the law of gravity. So, what we have then is we have financial compensation for these things. How do we know it's financial compensation? Because this particular verse, these verses, this concept, comes right after a discussion on financial compensation. Remember, in the Torah, nothing is there by chance or random. It's not like, oh, well, let's take some ox things and put it over with slaves. No, it all follows a very specific flow. And if you have something that discusses money, and then it's like life for eye, tooth for tooth, life for life, well, then that's a continuation. Then it's all in one context that we're talking about money, except life for life, the only exception. And it's not any life for life if it's an unintentional death. It's an unintentional death. Some people will say that it's an act of God. God wanted that person to die, so he in his infinite wisdom set up a situation where that person would die. Now, people drive the freeways every day. You see a fatal accident. Was it that person's time? Did they do something? Did they kill somebody in this life or something? Or maybe another life? Maybe they did. We don't know. It's really kind of Hashem's decision, isn't it? It's only intentional. It's only when somebody's been warned and two people see a person scheming, lying in wait, and they go to kill that person. That's life for life. That's capital punishment, and it doesn't matter who that person is. You cannot buy your freedom. If that person was a Kohen that was about to go into the Holy of Holies to make atonement for the whole community, it doesn't matter. You have to suffer your punishment. That's the way it is. There's no discrimination between poor, rich, or middle class. In Judaism, the law applies to everybody and everyone equally. Torah is an equitable form of justice. One last thing before our time is up. This is just kind of a little bit of trivia. Many people may not be able to relate to it because it's kind of obscure for me. It's part of my life, but you're all familiar with what the Talmud is. It's the oral law. It's the encyclopedic oral volumes of interpretation of the Torah. It takes 7.5 years to read if you go to Daf Yomi Grab and read it like page by page or folio by folio, as it's called. There are 4 books: Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, and Sanhedrin. Those 4 books make up the laws of civil law and torts. They start with an ox that gores. And it's interesting because it's a dumb animal. It doesn't know. Typically dumb animals, unless they're threatened, don't go after humans. So that's how the whole thing starts. So anyway, let's continue this minion thing on Saturday, shall we? See you all Saturday for Torah, and of course we'll see you Friday night. We're playing the guitar, and thank you, Alana, for joining us on the violin. Hope you have a great week. Shabbat Shalom, and look forward to seeing you in services.